PlayStation boss Jim Ryan caught lying? A new Xbox exclusive is revealed, and a whole bunch of drama. Yo, what is going on, everybody? This is Randall419, the man with the million, back again with the video I didn't think I was gonna make, but we have some very spicy, very interesting things that we certainly need to talk about. And if you guys can do me a huge favor, hit the like button, please, and make sure to subscribe. We're on our way to 100K, but we have some very juicy developments to talk about. Today was day one of the Xbox Microsoft versus FTC trial, where the FTC is trying to get an injunction from a judge to essentially block Microsoft and Activision from merging. Essentially, all comes down to this: if the judge agrees with the FTC, everything is dead. Microsoft is probably going to have to pull out of the deal. But if the judge sides with Microsoft and Xbox, it certainly sounds like the Activision deal will be closed by the deadline of July 18th. And I don't really know what's going to happen with the CMA, but it all comes down to this. You had Sarah Bond, Matt Booty, Pete Hines, all testifying in court today, and we did get some really interesting information. Now, before we get into everything that lying, flying, crying, Jim Dance Move Saving Private Ryan had to say about the Activision deal, I would be remiss not to mention that, well, everything's not going great right now in the Xbox world. Sure, we had the incredible showcase, and the future does look bright, but leave it to Microsoft to ruin a good thing. Because yesterday they decided to raise prices on their consoles as well as Game Pass. And you know what? I made fun of Sony for doing it because it's kind of lame to see these billion-dollar and trillion-dollar corporations want more money for these older products. So, you know what? It's the same thing with Xbox. How are we 3 years into this generation and you're actually charging more for your console? And even though everybody expected Microsoft to raise the price of Game Pass at some point, it doesn't mean we have to like it. Sure, it's only a $1 increase for Game Pass on console and a $2 increase for Game Pass Ultimate, but yet again, this is a $1 trillion corporation and nobody wants to spend more money on something. So, not happy with this, not happy when Sony did it, and I certainly don't like it when Microsoft follows suit. And with their stated goal of reaching 3 billion players, it makes it a lot more harder when you raise the price, effectively raising barriers for more people to get into your ecosystem and discover something they would like. So with that out of the way, we need to talk about my favorite guy in the video game industry, the leader of PlayStation, Jim Ryan. We've talked about him a lot since last year when Sony went on this rampage to all the regulators talking about how Call of Duty is so important. Jim Ryan was basically out there saying if they lost Call of Duty or a version of it was degraded, that their business would never recover. We've covered that in length. We've all laughed about it because it's totally absurd. And even all the regulators, from the CMA that really wants this deal to get blocked to the European Union and others, all looked at Jim Ryan and said, "We don't believe you. The numbers don't match reality." And they threw away that console harm. Well, now, because of this trial going on between the FTC and Xbox, it turns out that Jim was actually lying the entire time. Imagine that. Everything he said was for PlayStation's benefit because they didn't want Xbox and Activision to work together. They wanted it completely blocked. This is what The Verge had to say about it. We're only minutes into the FTC versus Microsoft hearing, and we've already had a bombshell revelation. Sony's PlayStation chief, Jim Ryan, believed that Microsoft's proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard wasn't about locking games as an Xbox exclusive, according to newly unsealed emails. Microsoft Counsel revealed the exchange between Ryan and a former Sony CEO discussing the announcement of the deal last year. Quote, "It is not an exclusivity play at all," said Ryan. "They're thinking bigger than that, and they have the cash to make moves like this. I've spent a fair amount of time with Phil Spencer, Bobby Kotick, and I'm pretty sure we will continue to see Call of Duty on PlayStation for years to come. The surprise revelation runs counter to Sony's arguments against Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal and its filings with regulators. Sony has maintained its fears Microsoft could make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox or even sabotage the PlayStation versions of the game. Ryan went on to say, quote, "We have some good stuff cooking. I'm not complacent. I'd rather this didn't happen, but we'll be okay." Oh, so now the truth finally comes out in an email dated from January 20th of last year, 2 days after the ABK deal went down. Now suddenly we know that Jim Ryan wasn't sweating anything. We talked about how he said that their business would never recover, and he didn't even bother to make the journey to give live testimony to the FTC. You know, if my business was imperative danger of essentially never recovering, you bet your ass I do everything in my power to make sure that I actually cared. The Microsoft executives are there in person, but Jimbo just taped something. And here we have it. Jimbo didn't even believe anything he was saying to the regulators since the beginning. He knew that Microsoft wasn't going to remove Call of Duty from PlayStation, and in fact he says here that PlayStation will be more than okay. Jim, I love ya, but you're living up to your name. Lying, crying, flying Jim, dance move, Saving Private Ryan once again. This was such a bombshell that even Microsoft had to respond by saying, quote, "Today's show, Sony has known all along, will stand by our promise to keep games on its platform and make clear its work to lobby against the deal is only to protect its dominant position in the market," says David Cuddy, General Manager of Public Affairs at Microsoft, in a statement to The Verge. You know, I'm just sitting here reminiscing about all the crap that Jim Ryan and PlayStation were spreading about the Activision deal, about how the industry would be destroyed, how developers would be ruined, how gamers need to be protected, and how PlayStation were the saviors, and from the very beginning they didn't believe any of it. Look, I don't begrudge Jim Ryan going out to regulators and lobbying for his position about how the deal shouldn't happen, because that's what's best for the PlayStation business, and it's his job to do that. However, when you have these smoking gun emails and they point to the philosophy that you never believed a single word of it from the very beginning, in fact, you thought PlayStation was going to be more than okay, I just kind of have to look at you and say to myself, I'm never believing another thing you say ever again. And why should we? Jim Ryan's a guy that said we believe in generations before announcing months down the road that they actually don't, because all their games are going to be cross-gen. And here we have another example of Jim's lie. Oh, I love it. It's so fantastic. But that wasn't all the juicy drama that happened during this trial. You guys recall about a month ago when PlayStation had their showcase, and a lot of the hardcore PlayStation fans, including most of the general public, didn't like that show and were incredibly disappointed? And then suddenly, people started talking about a secret PlayStation showcase that might happen some random time in the future, and this will be when Sony destroys everything, when they'll show the goods. Well, it wasn't PlayStation at a secret showcase. It was Xbox. Because during this trial, we got a brand new Xbox exclusive revealed, and it's none other than Machine Games' Indiana Jones. So, according to VGC, Bethesda's in-development Indiana Jones game is now an Xbox exclusive. It's been confirmed. The exclusivity was confirmed by publishing boss Pete Hine on Thursday, who was speaking in court during the opening day of Microsoft's legal battle with the Federal Trade Commission, which is seeking to block its acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Hines was asked by FTC lawyers to confirm if, before Bethesda was acquired by Microsoft, Disney had a signed agreement with its parent ZeniMax to, quote, make an Indiana Jones game for multiple consoles, to which he replied, yes. The publishing boss was then asked to confirm if, after Microsoft's acquisition, Disney brought up the issue of which consoles the Indiana Jones game would be released for. Hines again replied, yes. He then confirmed that Bethesda had later amended the Disney agreement and that Indiana Jones will now be an Xbox and PC exclusive and a day one release on Xbox Game Pass. Pete Hines also claimed in court on Thursday that the publisher now made exclusivity decisions on a, quote, case-by-case basis, and that the titles it did decide to release only on Xbox benefited from streamlined development, partially due to it having to test fewer versions. Quote, "You go to fewer platforms, your development gets more streamlined. It just needs to run as well as possible on one box on PC. You know, a narrow focus always helps." It's this same reason why Indiana Jones was repositioned as an Xbox console exclusive, he claimed. He goes on to say, quote, "The primary one in my view is what I said about reducing risk and trying to get a degree of certainty," Hines said, as transcribed by journalist Derek Strickland. "You're dealing with a licensor who's going to have a ton of feedback on what you're making. Add a lot of time to your schedule. You're required to provide a release window. You immediately have a clock that's ticking. We like the idea of bringing it to Game Pass and all the players we could reach there." Hines also went on to claim that if Starfield were releasing on multiple consoles, it would not be able to make its planned release date later this year. Quote, "In my opinion, no. This game would not be coming out in 9 weeks if we were supporting an entirely different platform." Now, Indiana Jones was one of those games that we always wondered what exclusivity was going to be with that title. Would it come to Xbox Game Pass? Would it be an Xbox exclusive? We sort of figured that Disney, when making the arrangement with Bethesda and Machine Games, would want it to be multi-platform, to go to as many consoles as possible, but Disney's not against exclusives, as we've seen with Knights of the Republic, with PlayStation, and these Spider-Man games. But when Bethesda got bought out by Microsoft, it seemed that they went to renegotiate. Disney was okay with it just being on Xbox, and obviously clearly liked the idea of Xbox Game Pass. I mean, it takes two to tango, right? Disney would have to agree with it. Clearly they did. So now we have another Xbox exclusive to look forward to, Indiana Jones by Machine Games. Hopefully we can finally see what it looks like next year. I'm thinking maybe a release in 2025 is likely. But this was just a small section of what happened during day one of the trial of FTC versus Xbox. Jim Ryan caught lying, new Xbox exclusive revealed Indiana Jones. Sarah Bond even talked about how Activision was holding Call of Duty and all their games hostage. They actually weren't going to make anything for the Xbox Series X until Microsoft agreed to raise their revenue share from 70-30 to 80-20. And that's something we had no idea about, and it's a huge thing. And now, well, look what happened. Microsoft is in the process of trying to acquire Activision Blizzard, but at some point it could have been possible that Call of Duty skipped Xbox because Microsoft wouldn't agree with Activision's demands. There's a lot of dirty laundry being aired. I'm all here for it. Can't wait to see what happens in the next few days. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button. Please subscribe if you're new. Check out the Patreon for the Xbox 2 in the description below. Let me know what you think about all this. Love you guys. Thank you for taking the time out of the day to watch the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.